The spillways at Hoover Dam have not touched water in 43 years. They sit in the Nevada desert, bone dry, baking in heat that reaches 120 degrees in summer and dropping below freezing on winter nights. The concrete inside those tunnels has been expanding and contracting in that cycle for 4 decades, without a single drop of water to cool it, lubricate it, or test whether it still holds. The drum gates have not moved under a real load since the early 1980s. The seals have never been stress tested under flood conditions. And 40 million people in the American Southwest depend on the Colorado River system that Hoover Dam controls for water they assume will always be there. That gap between assumption and mechanism is what this case file is about. Because the visible symptom here is not a bloom, or a die-off, or a retreating shoreline. The visible symptom is the dry concrete itself, the empty channel, the gates that have never been asked to do their job under real pressure. And through a forensic lens, that stillness is not a sign of stability. It is a record of structural drift. 43 years of quiet degradation in a system that was only ever designed to work by working. By the end of this case file, you will understand exactly how that cutoff happens, and why the surface gives you no warning before it does. We view Hoover Dam as a triumph. Most people see it as an icon of American engineering, a fixed point in the landscape, a solved problem. But through a forensic lens, Hoover Dam is not a solved problem. It is a hydraulic system with a critical emergency function that has been sitting untested for longer than most of its components were designed to go without use. And the drought conditions that made the spillways unnecessary are the same conditions quietly accelerating the internal decay. Look at it. The spillway tunnels run parallel to the dam face, bored through solid canyon wall. Each one is roughly 900 feet long. The engineers who built them in the 1930s excavated more than 600,000 cubic yards of solid rock to create these channels, a construction effort of staggering scale, designed entirely for one purpose: to carry floodwater safely around the dam when Lake Mead rises to critical levels. The drum gates at the top of each spillway are hollow steel structures that float on rising water and open automatically. The original design concept was elegant and self-sufficient. If the reservoir rose high enough, the gates would open without any human intervention. The dam, in theory, could protect itself even if everyone walked away. That design is the foundation of this case file. And the foundation has a problem. Because the spillways have only been used twice in the dam's entire 90-year history. The first time was 1941, a controlled test run. Engineers wanted to see the system work before they needed it. What they found was that the water, even under controlled conditions, was more destructive than the concrete could quietly absorb. That first test ripped a cavity into the spillway tunnel 115 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 45 feet deep. 1,069 cubic yards of solid material, concrete and bedrock, was torn out of the tunnel in a single controlled test. Not a flood, a test. The engineers patched it, reinforced it, and moved on. But the record of what the system does when it actually runs was already written in that first use. This is exactly what that symptom means when you read it forensically. The cavity was not a construction defect, it was a physics problem. Fast-moving water at high pressure creates zones of turbulence where the local pressure drops below the vapor pressure of water itself. Tiny vacuum bubbles form in those low-pressure zones and then implode violently against whatever surface is nearby: concrete, steel, bedrock. That process is called cavitation. And cavitation does not chip or scratch a surface. It hammers it at frequencies and energies that can punch through materials measured in feet of thickness. The 1941 test showed that the Hoover spillways were operating in a cavitation regime even under controlled flow. That fact was documented, repaired, and then the spillways went dry. 42 years passed. Then came 1983. An unusually wet winter in the Rocky Mountains sent runoff volumes into the Colorado River system that Lake Mead had not seen in decades. The reservoir climbed. By late spring, Engineers were watching the water level approach the spillway trigger threshold. They used flashboards and plywood extensions on the spillway crests to buy time, an improvised solution at one of the most engineered structures in the world. When the spillways finally ran, the cavitation problem returned with full force. The damage concentrated at the tunnel elbow transition, the point where the spillway channel bends and the water changes direction. Kinetic energy concentrates at that curve. Pressure drops. Bubbles form. They implode. The 3-foot concrete lining that was supposed to protect the tunnel bedrock was breached in hours. The cavitation had punched straight through it. The 1983 event produced damage significant enough that engineers had to redesign the system afterward. The solution was aeration ducts, channels that introduce air into the water flow just upstream of the critical elbow, creating a compressible cushion that absorbs some of the bubble implosion energy and reduces cavitation intensity. The ducts were installed. The engineering community considered the problem addressed. And then, Lake Mead dropped, and the spillways went dry again. That was the last time water ran through those tunnels. The aeration ducts that were designed to save the system from cavitation damage have never been tested under actual flood conditions. The fix that was supposed to make the spillways safe has been sitting in dry concrete for 43 years without a single operational confirmation that it works. And the deeper part, the part that the surface does not show you, is what 43 years of desert thermal cycling does to a hydraulic system that was designed to work wet. The drum gates are massive hollow steel structures. Steel expands in heat and contracts in cold. The Nevada desert delivers both extremes across every annual cycle. For 43 years, those gates have been expanding and contracting without the thermal buffer that water provides. The rubber and mechanical seals that keep the gates watertight have been sitting in dry desert air, exposed to ultraviolet radiation, thermal stress, and zero operational load. Seals are designed to be tested by use. They maintain their integrity through compression cycles, through the feedback of actual water pressure, through the stress testing that reveals small failures before they become catastrophic ones. These seals have had none of that. They have had 4 decades of sun, heat, cold, and silence. Now look at the concrete. Engineers monitor the spillway tunnels continuously for cracking and seepage. The standard professional position on this is honest and direct. There is going to be cracking in all dams. Concrete at this scale, under thermal cycling at this intensity, cracks. That is not a failure of design. That is the physics of the material. The monitoring exists precisely because the cracking is expected. But monitoring cracking in a dry tunnel and understanding how that cracking behaves under sudden hydraulic pressure are 2 different things. A hairline crack in dry concrete that seeps a small amount of groundwater under static conditions can become a fracture propagation pathway when thousands of tons of rushing water hit it at pressure. The crack geometry changes, the forces change, the behavior changes, and the system has not been run to show engineers what the current crack geometry does under those conditions. If the inflow to Lake Mead held at historical averages and the reservoir climbed back toward its full pool elevation, that symptom would ease. The spillways would get their stress test, the seals would get their operational cycle, the aeration ducts would get their confirmation. But Lake Mead currently sits at approximately 1,051 feet above sea level. The spillway trigger threshold is 1,220 feet. The gap between those 2 numbers is 169 feet of water that does not exist in the reservoir right now. Under current drought conditions, reaching the spillway trigger is not a near-term engineering concern. It is a mathematical impossibility in the near term. And that is precisely what makes the situation forensically significant, because the conditions that make the spillways unnecessary are the same conditions that are extending the period of untested degradation. This is the feedback loop. The drought keeps Lake Mead low. Low Lake Mead means no spillway activation. No spillway activation means no operational stress testing. No stress testing means no confirmation of seal integrity, gate function, aeration duct performance, or concrete behavior under hydraulic load. Meanwhile, the thermal cycling continues. The seals continue to degrade. The concrete continues to crack and shift. The hinges continue to sit static. And if a future wet cycle, a multi-year precipitation anomaly, an atmospheric river sequence, a rapid snowpack melt event, drives the reservoir toward the trigger threshold, the system that responds will be 43 years older, 43 years drier, and 43 years less tested than it was the last time it ran. You, the viewer, should watch two things going forward. Watch the Lake Mead elevation. Not the daily fluctuation, the seasonal trend. A sustained rise toward the 900-foot range, then toward 1,000 feet, then above it, is the early indicator that the gap between current level and spillway trigger is beginning to close. That is not a crisis signal. That is the beginning of the chain. The second thing to watch is any reported inspection finding from the spillway tunnels, any language about seal replacement schedules, gate mechanism servicing, or aeration duct testing protocols. If those reports appear in engineering bulletins or infrastructure review documents, they are not routine maintenance updates. They are the system beginning to acknowledge that 43 years of dry idle is a condition that requires active remediation, not passive monitoring. The surface of the dam looks identical today to how it looked in 1984. That is not evidence of health. It is evidence of how well the surface hides the mechanism underneath. So here is the answer to the question from the beginning. This is how 40 million people get cut off. If a high precipitation cycle drives Lake Mead toward the spillway trigger threshold, the drum gates, sitting on seals that have been thermally cycled for 43 years without operational testing, with aeration ducts that have never been confirmed effective under real flood conditions, in tunnels whose crack geometry under hydraulic pressure is unknown, would be asked to carry up to 400,000 cubic feet of water per second through concrete channels that were damaged the last 2 times they ran. A gate seal failure, a cavitation breach at the tunnel elbow, or a crack propagation event under sudden hydraulic load would not just disable a safety feature. It would compromise the structural integrity of the system that controls water delivery to the entire lower Colorado River basin. That is not a projection. That is the system working exactly as it is currently built. Hoover Dam is not dead yet, but that is the point. The spillways are not the collapse. They are the symptom of the collapse, the visible record of a hydraulic system whose emergency function has been sitting in desert conditions for longer than its components were designed to idle, tested exactly twice, damaged both times, and not confirmed operational since the last administration that saw the reservoir this low was managing a completely different set of infrastructure assumptions. The 40 million people who depend on this water do not see the mechanism. They see the surface. Now you do. Thank you for watching. I genuinely appreciate you spending time on this one. If this case file changed how you read the dam, drop a comment and tell me what hit hardest. And tell me which water body you want covered next. I read every suggestion. The next case file is already close. Stay with it.